All right, welcome Emily, welcome Christina. So those of you that were coming in, I was just saying we're kind of going to focus on glutes, hip flexors, and back. So those are areas that are kind of hard to use your hands or a stick roller. So I prefer balls or foam roller. Let's start with the glutes. You can use 2 balls in the bag if you like. That's going to be a little less intense. I usually go ahead and take out 1 ball for my glutes. Sometimes people will put 1 ball under one glute and 1 ball under the other. That's also an option if you were like limited time, but I like to do just 1 glute at a time. And you can do this seated. I could even lay down. Lay down. And then it works really well to come into a wall as well. So if you took the ball, placed the ball between you, I have a wall right here behind me, and came and rolled into the wall. That also works. So whatever feels most comfortable to you. We'll spend about 5 minutes on each glute. Welcome, Alexandra. Welcome, Anne-Marie. Welcome, Erin. I think I welcomed you, Emily, but welcome again in case I skipped over. Welcome, Darlene. As we're rolling our glute, I want you to think about getting all around the glute. So the back part that we sit on, but also coming a little bit here onto the side glute. Oftentimes is where I'm really tight. If you did mat Pilates and bar or Tabata, or not Tabata, Bardio this week, lots of leg and glute work, you might find the outer glute to be tight. And we'll just kind of work all around 1 glute for 5 minutes, a few more minutes left here. Welcome, Linda. Welcome, Erica. And then, of course, if you can stick around for yin, we will focus on stretching glutes, hip flexors, and low back. And maybe more of our back too. We'll see how far we get. But we'll spend about 5-ish minutes per area today. I've been rolling my back a lot today. My back's been really tight. So, you know, anytime if you're noticing a certain area of your body is tighter than any other areas, you can always spend the time here in this class focused on that area. You don't have to roll what we're rolling tonight. So rolling and moving, and then also maybe think about just kind of sitting and sinking in. Pause and hold, little pressure point. Maybe a little moving. Pause and hold. So you can kind of come back and forth. Flossing the leg, so we can place the leg in different positions. Core stretch out long, both feet on the floor. Whatever kind of feels best to you. Don't be afraid to experiment. As some of you were coming in, I was saying, so one of my clients, she didn't have the balls in yet, and she'd been using a rolling pin, like you would roll out pizza dough or cookie dough with. And I was like, oh, you don't have the balls yet. The rolling pin's kind of hard to get back and roll your glutes. And she sat on the rolling pin, totally worked. So, you know, be creative, try out different things. Welcome, Linda, and Linda R and Linda A coming in. So those of you who are coming in, we're focusing on glutes, hip flexors, and back tonight. But of course, you can roll any part of your body that you like. We'll hang out here on this glute about another minute, and then we'll switch. And yeah, standing, seated, or a lot of times I'll even lay down if I'm feeling kind of tired. I'll just lay down and roll around on my glute. And I don't have to hold myself up with my arms. My back gets to just be a neutral. And we do want to be careful around our glutes. You know, we don't want to come onto our tailbone, which is kind of right there, center between the glutes, our tailbone, our coccyx bone. Small bone, it is kind of easy to bruise and different stuff. So we want to stay on the glutes, on the meatier part of the body, not on the spine or the sacrum or the coccyx. Welcome, Sarah. And then just kind of working around the side of the glute as well. And then once again, a few of you have just joined us. Remember, you can roll any part of your body you like. So if you're here and you want to roll your feet, your quads, feel free to work whatever part of your body you feel like you need. If you're brand new, you haven't ever done any of this, then we're focusing glutes and back, and you can learn that area tonight. Over about a 4 to 5 week period, we get through the whole body. All right, let's go ahead and switch to the other glute. Remember, this is just a guide, a time guide. If you feel like you need to stay on the first glute a little longer, feel free. If you ever feel like you want to switch sooner. So I decided to lay down in it. It feels nice to just lay here. So I'm going to lay down on this other glute, but remember, sitting or standing all work well. You feel those little bit tighter areas, maybe concentrate on the rolling right there. Again, playing with the position of your leg. Maybe playing with the position that you're seated or lying or using the wall. Welcome, Amy B. Don't forget the side of the glute. So laying down, I can come onto my side. If I'm more seated, I can come onto my side. Tighter areas are areas where you feel kind of a little bit more sensation. Think about just slowing down, moving a little slower and pausing. There's a little spot right there that I feel, so I'm just going to pause here for 30, 60 seconds. Maybe a little shifting rather than rolling when you hit a tight spot. And then move again. So we do have a couple of newer people here tonight. So I usually in class, we stick to an area about 5-ish minutes. So we did 5 minutes the first glute, 5 minutes the second. On your own, if your glutes are really tight, you might want to roll each glute, 10 minutes or so, just kind of rule of thumb. We don't want to continue to agitate an area. So like I was saying, my back is really tight. I think I might look a little rib out. See my chiro next week. But because of that, I've been rolling quite a bit today, but I don't do it consistently. So I'll roll my back maybe 5-ish minutes, and then I'll give it a break for a while. And then I came back to it. So over the course of the day, I've maybe rolled my back about 3 times, or it will be about 3 times after tonight. So you can do it, if there's an area that's really tight, so say your glutes are tight, maybe you roll them in the morning, maybe you roll them in the evening if you have that kind of time. But we don't want to just over agitate. So I don't want to stick on one spot of my back or my glutes for 30, 40 minutes. 10 minutes is kind of a good rule of thumb. Move on, come back to it, maybe stretch it, maybe just get some normal movement. Maybe depending if you are recovering from an injury, you might even have some icing of it. But it's not, if a little's good, more is way better. You want to kind of spread it out a little bit. So we're bringing the blood supply in, we're activating the area, and then we want to back off for a little bit and give it time to just kind of rest and let the body heal. And then maybe come back to it later in the day or the next day. All right, about another minute here on this glute, and then we are going to move into the front to touch into the hip flexors through the front of our body. And then after that, we'll be on our back. So if you have an area that is tight, you want to kind of think about rolling that area and then rolling the areas that are kind of above and below it as well, because the body's pretty interconnected. But with all that being said, right, we want to kind of roll the whole body at least occasionally, because something going in our foot could affect our knee, something going on the right side of the body can affect the left. It's just the way the body does. So like I've been feeling some pain on the right side of my back, but when I roll, it's actually the left side that feels the tightest. So most likely what's happening is the left side is tightening. It's pulling on my spine. And as it pulls on my spine, it causes kind of a little disconnection of the rib on the right side of my body. So I may think, well, I'm feeling pain on the right side of my body. That's where I should roll. But the action is probably going on the left side of the spine. So those are just some things to kind of, think about. Nice. And then from here, we're going to get into our hip flexor briefly. This can be pretty tender. So if you do not like this sensation, feel free to stick with your glutes a little longer, go to another part of your body or head on up to your back. That's where we're going to come. But so our hip flexors, they come up from the quads over the hip bone and attach into the low spine. So we'll get them from the low spine in a minute, but they come right inside our bony hip bone portion. So if you kind of reach down, you can feel that bony hip bone. So it's a kind of hard spot to get laying flat on the floor. So I like to take the ball, either a small or a big one. The small is going to be a little more intense. Place it on a book or a yoga block. Now to find the spot, I usually kind of set up, it's about halfway between the hip bone and the navel, but I usually put the ball on the hip bone and I roll just right inside the hip bone. So hip bone, roll. And then from there, coming over the book or a yoga block, I can start to press down into it. Now, the bigger the ball, you can have a smaller book. The book doesn't have to be as tall. I'm using a small ball here. That's why I'm using my big block. And I'm not going to move a ton here. I'm just going to kind of press into it. And it's some light shifting more than true rolling. And we're getting into the psoas and the iliacus, which is often referred to as the iliopsoas. So two hip flexor muscles. And I always get the two mixed up. Like one of them, I think it's the iliacus that's the longer one and the psoas, but I'm probably getting them mixed up. I do it every time and then I go and I look and then I forget again. But it doesn't, that part isn't super important. It's just kind of getting into the area. And I'm just kind of pushing into this. And it's a little uncomfortable. So use your judgment, right? We want sensations maybe between a 4 and an 8, a 5 and an 8. If it's so painful, what you can do is just roll your glutes a little more or go ahead and start rolling your back because both of those are going to help to loosen up the hip flexor. The hip flexors can be very tight, especially if you have a job where you sit. And so you can see I'm not really moving a lot. I'm just kind of holding here. This gets a little hard to do with a foam roller because you kind of need a ball that'll just kind of stick right up in there. The other thing you can do, you can just take your thumb kind of, and you can press your thumb. So if you think here's your hip bone, I'm just going to kind of roll my thumb. I can feel my hip flexor. It's like so tight. Roll or press my thumb kind of right inside the hip bone. So that's another area you could go to. And then we'll just switch. We'll do the same thing into the other hip bone. I usually only hold these hip flexors for 2 or 3 minutes because they're pretty intense. But of course you could stay here for like 5 minutes. This side's tighter. And so you can see I'm kind of holding myself up on my elbows a little bit and gently trying to release down into it. Again, monitoring kind of that sensation. I don't want to get to the point where I'm clenching my jaw, having a hard time breathing because it's so intense. And this side is pretty intense. So again, I could choose to stay here. I could choose to go ahead and move to my back if this was too much. Or I could take this time because loosening other parts of our body is going to help loosen our hip flexor as well, especially the low back, which we'll get to in just a moment. Try to breathe, try to relax your body as much as possible. So if we're tensing and tightening, we're just going to make the muscles tighter. Maybe deep breaths in the nose, out the mouth. Aiming for a couple of minutes, up to 5 minutes if you can. I'm just trying to get us here for about 3. Again, you could use your thumb. Runners will often have really tight hip flexors. And then just if you have a job where you're seated a lot, then your hip flexor is in a shortened position. Do a lot of uphill hiking. And then oftentimes when we do traditional type of sit-ups, we over rely on the hip flexors. So you should feel after, 2 to 5-ish minutes, a little bit of a lightening. So when I first came onto this, I was really having to hold myself up with my elbows. I can now relax into it. I still feel the sensation, right? But it's not quite as intense. I'm able to relax into it more. And I'll let you know some changes happened. It's an ongoing process though, and we continue to use our body. So we want to continue to roll our body over time. And then we'll gently ease our way up and off. We'll come on to our back for the remainder of our time. So again, options, a lot of times people like to start, I often like to start with 2 balls in the bag. And you can do your back on the wall as well. A lot of times I use the little bit bigger ball, but you can use either. I just find that the bigger one's a little bit easier to kind of balance on. But if I am using 2 balls, I want to try to situate the balls so that space between them is kind of on the spine. And then I can come to a wall, kind of roll up and down the wall. I can lay into them on my back. And I can just take my time. I can kind of stay in one spot. If I work at my low back, I could hug my knees into the chest and rock around. It's less intense using both balls than using one. So a lot of times I'll start with 2. Just to kind of loosen things up, and then I'll kind of move and walk my way up my back. And then maybe walk my way down my back. A few times. I like to move a little bit slowly too. Sometimes if you slowly move down your spine, you will get a little natural adjustment of your spine. You'll hear a little bit of cracking. Great, that's okay. You're not forcing anything. Very natural. Your spine probably needed it, wanted it. Just tell people not to force. As you're rolling up and down your back, you can just kind of start to do a survey. Where do I feel like I need that the most? Maybe even I pause. I usually pause and just hold here. I like to sometimes arch over the balls and let the arms come into a T, just taking a little bit of a chest opener. Feel good. I can rock side to side a little. So rock into one ball and then into the other. And then at any point during this, I can go to a single ball. So using 1 rather than 2 is going to be a deeper massage because I'm focusing more of my body weight or more of my effort onto one side. So again, I don't want to roll directly on the spine. I want to roll to either side of it. I'm going to be kind of careful as I come up here between the spine and the rib cage because they come together pretty close. So it's a smaller area. Down here in the QL, our quadratus lumborum, and also that's where those hip flexors come up and attach. Great, I have a little bit more space. I can roll around in that whole area. So if you'd like to switch to one ball, we can just kind of work one side of our body for about 5 minutes and then the other side. So if I wanted to start down in my QL, the hip flexor region, there's the ball right there. And I can play with the position that I put my leg in. Lifting it or coming into a 4 or leaving it on the ground. Or maybe using the wall. And then just, feel free to kind of work your way up your back as you like. We'll kind of focus up the center of the back tonight. And next week, we'll get into kind of the outer side of the shoulder, the chest, the neck. And I'll just tell you when it's been about 5 minutes. So if you're using one side, you can switch to the other side. Just kind of pacing yourself a little bit. Maybe coming up. I like to come up right between the shoulder blade and the spine. So I've got the ball right up here. You get up into the shoulder area. You can play with the position of your arm. I can lift my glutes. Here I am balancing on the ball. That is a lot of tension. That does take some core work as well. Or I can drop my glutes down and just get a little more shifting around. And I do like to try to come up high onto my shoulder. A couple of ways to do that is to come into a bridge. As I come into a bridge, I can kind of press the top of my shoulder down. If I don't want to sit here and hold my glutes in the air, I could grab my yoga block and use it as a support. So I bridge up, place the yoga block under me. Now I don't have to work too hard. I can get right up into that part of my shoulder that I know I'm constantly always grabbing. And then I want to show you one more thing on your shoulder while you're rolling. I turn my camera a little bit. So I try to remember to show you all this from time to time. So this is a little wobbly shelf, so it's not really ideal to use. But if I had a corner wall or a better shelf than this one, which I do this in the main part of my house with like this pillar thing by the stairs. If you bring the ball kind of right on top of the shoulder, I can come in like I'm going to tackle. So my head comes outside the shelf and I can pull my shoulder into the ball and the ball rolls here on the shelf. Now I don't have to be sitting down. I could be standing up to do this as well. It was easier just to show you down here, but especially since I'm videoing tonight and this will be up on demand for a while, I wanted to be able to show you that. So I'm kind of putting the ball right here on the shoulder, coming in and kind of pressing the corner of a wall. So I have to have the corner of a wall, right? Because if I had just a straight wall here, there's nowhere for my head to go. But anywhere in your house where you have a corner, or if you've got like a bookcase or something, that works really well. It's a nice way to get right on the top of the shoulder, that place where, I don't know if you're like me, I'm constantly, and you can do that too. You can use your hands to rub it out, but it feels really good with the ball. All right, so we'll spend about another minute on this one side and then we'll switch. Sometimes you can feel kind of little knots as you're rolling slowly. If you feel one of those, just kind of push into it and release, push into it and release. Maybe hold it. Here I'm trying to just hold on a little knot. Taking an inhale, and as you exhale, gently, softly releasing. Body push into the ball. Sometimes you'll even feel the knot give. You can literally feel it give. Thanks. And we'll just go ahead and switch over to the other side of the spine. If you've been doing one side, if you've been doing both, 2 balls at a time, or you can continue, or you can go to another part of your body. And always remember, feel free to chat any questions in the box if you have any questions. And just a couple of reminders as we're coming here towards the end. 9 to Shine kicks off September the 1st, 9 days. So we're inviting, members and non-members to invite a friend. all we do is we ask that you do sign up, even if you're a member, because that'll get your name kind of put in. And then you attend one class a day for 9 days. It's just kind of to build that habit of coming to something for 9 days in a row. We're all about the honesty system here. And then your name gets entered for some prizes. And to kind of kick that off, we have the sweaty selfie. So starting, I might have officially started yesterday, I'm not sure today. Post your sweaty selfie or your workout space, give VFit a little bit of a tag. It's a great way to share VFit, but your name, you share it, you let Rochelle know that you shared it, right? You tag her, and your name again will go in a drawing. And I think a My Zone is being given away, but Joyce has some, great little prizes to give away as our thank you to you for sharing. And it's a great way to let your friends know about VFit. So those are kind of the two things going on and coming up. And then if you are part of that 6 months strong, we are coming towards the end of August. Do make a plan, set your classes, set your on-demands so that you reach your monthly goal. Can come around for yin after this. Most of you already know we will incorporate these same body parts. So we'll be stretching glutes, hip flexors, some back work. The same thing on the side, bridging up, coming to a wall, a corner. Feel those little knots. Slow down. Hold. A little shift and hold, and a little shift. There's not an exact science, right? You play around with kind of what feels best to you. Doesn't feel good if it's taking your breath away, if it's causing you to tighten, clench your jaw, move to a different area. Everything is interconnected. You work in a nearby area, and you can loosen up the area that was too tight enough. Then we can come back to it today or tomorrow. So we have just about a minute officially left in this class. So if you want to go back to any area, if you're good right where you are, do about 5-minute break between this class and yin. So there is time to sign up if you thought, oh, I may not have time to do both. And then maybe you realize you do have time. You can always sign up, or if you let me know here in just a moment when we're logging out, I can add you as well. Okay, so again, we have officially about 30 seconds left. I'm going to go ahead and come on up. So if anybody needs to chat me for me to add you to yin, please do so, and I will make sure to get you added. Otherwise, I'll log us out here in about 30, 60 seconds. And then you can continue to roll right up until time to sign in for yin. If you are not coming to yin, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I will see you again real soon. Again, I'll stay logged down a few seconds just in case anybody is asking me to add them. Thank you, Linda. I know I don't, and even though I teach this stuff, I don't roll as much as I should. And afterwards, I always feel so good, right? But it's so easy to put it off.
So if nothing else, come to this class once a week, at least get 30 minutes of rolling, and throughout the month, you'll get the whole body. All right. Thank you all, everybody. I will see some of you in just a moment in Yin.